Hey, what's up, people? Piz out here, and I want to talk today about George Romero. Today is George Romero's birthday. George Romero turns 72 today, I'm sorry. And I noticed this on IMDb. I check IMDb every so often, and today just happens to be Mr. Romero's birthday. And I clicked on his IMDb profile to see, hey, is he up to, is he got anything in production? Is he doing any more movies? He's 72 years old, which is a ripe old age. Is he still out there, doing his thing, being a film director? And he doesn't have anything in production according to IMDb, but I was just kind of scanning through his career as a director and wanted to kind of talk about his career. I mean, we'll always know George Romero as the zombie guy. He created really, the zombie movie, the zombie archetype that's been followed ever since. He created that all the way back in 1968 with Night of the Living Dead, and we see it even today with The Walking Dead. Zombie movies, especially nowadays, have just exploded. There's zombie movies everywhere. Zombies on TV. There's just dozens of direct-to-DVD zombie movies. It's zombie, zombie, zombie. But what kind of disillusions me a little bit is I think the younger fans who are coming into horror movies, they either don't know the name George Romero or they know the name George Romero from some of his more recent zombie movies, which, as big a fan as I am of George Romero, as influential as he is, Land Diary and Survival of the Dead, for me personally, have no place in the Dead, the Dead canon. I don't even, when I think about Romero's zombie film, when I think about the big three, it's the big three. Period. They're, Land, Survival, and Diary don't. As far as I'm concerned, they're like non-canon entries into that series. But also at the same time, I think those three films are a testament to, if you do something really, really well in Hollywood, as he did with the zombie films, you can make your name, you can make a lot of money, you can become a legend, but you're handcuffed. You can't really, they don't want to see you do anything else. And, early on in Romero's career, he really tried to branch out and do different kinds of movies after the success of Night of the Living Dead. He did movies like There's Always Vanilla, Hungry Wives. He came back to kind of the horror genre with The Crazies, which I've always thought was a pretty good movie on his part. Again, a social satire, well, not really satire, but a social statement on, where he felt we were going as a country, as in the world, really. He did a TV documentary about O.J. Simpson. He then went on and did his own take on the vampire movie with Martin, which I've always been a big fan of. And then he did Dawn of the Dead, which for me is the ultimate zombie movie, my favorite George Romero film. Just an amazing, epic zombie film. Just a great, great zombie film. And, again, young fans today, they only know Dawn of the Dead, the remake Dawn of the Dead, which isn't a bad movie in and of itself, but really holds no candle to the original, in my opinion. He then went on to do the movie Night Riders, about these biker slash, what would you even call it? Where people dress up in as knights and put on these little shows for people in different towns. I forget what that's even called. Forgive me. He then did Creepshow, collaborating with Stephen King, and followed that up with Day of the Dead, the third entry in his Dead series, which though it wasn't as heralded by critics and it wasn't a big success at the box office, for me, I think is a really solid, really bleak, zombie film. I really like that movie. Of all the Romero zombie movies, that's the one that I've gone back to many times to watch again and again. There's just something about it that I find to be incredibly powerful. He then did Monkey Shines, and only did 2 films in the 90s. And I know that he was working on that 4th Dead film in the 90s. He had written it specifically for that decade. He even, I've heard Romero say this many times, he had pretensions of doing, one of his social statement zombie movies in each decade. He did Night in the 60s, he did Dawn in the 70s, he did Day in the 80s, and he wanted to have one for the 90s, but it just didn't happen. Zombie movies weren't happening in the 90s. Horror really wasn't happening in the 90s. That the kind of horror that Romero's known for. And horror really was in kind of a stagnant place in the 90s until Scream came along. He then came out in 2000 with Bruiser. I'm sure most Romero fans have seen Bruiser. It's not the best flick in the world. But after a 7-year hiatus, that was his return to the genre. And then he followed that up with Land, Diary, and Survival of the Dead in 2005, 2007, 2009, respectively. And Land of the Dead, I think, is okay. It's Hollywood Romero. It's Romero under the constraints of, Hollywood, major studio. The Dawn of the Dead remake had come out. It had been a big hit. Zombies were in vogue again. So they were like, hey, let's bring in the zombie man himself, see what he can do. Maybe he can make, another Dawn. But he did Land of the Dead, which, Land of the Dead was his 90s zombie movie that he brought into the 2000s and updated for the 2000s, but it still had some social commentary about the 90s in it. It's not a bad movie in and of itself. It's not on par with any of his other zombie films. Romero, like Carpenter, has kind of he's explored other genres, and he's worked within the horror genre on different films on different kinds of genre films that were very successful, showing that, Romero is, a really talented just director, period. Not just, a horror movie director, just a talented director. Talked about Martin, talked about The Crazies, talked about Night Riders. The Dark Half, I think, is a really good movie. Another Stephen King adaptation he worked on. Creepshow is a classic. I don't know. People talk about Creepshow a lot, but I don't know if they really give it the credit that it deserves. Martin is, really just, it's a story of a vampire movie, but it's a psychological kind of vampire movie. It's a different take on the whole vampire movie thing in a time where there weren't, we've seen different takes on, vampirism as, drug addiction, and vampirism as, coming of age kind of thing. Vampirism is, the forbidden stuff, whatever. We see a lot of that today, but, I think Romero was really ahead of the curve with the whole, trying different things with vampire movies. The bottom line is, even though I think, the last 3 movies that Romero have done have certainly not been his best, and they've certainly not, they've certainly not satiated, they've not been much for, us, hardcore horror fans and, big Romero fans and fans of his Dead movies could really sink our teeth into. And yes, that's unfortunate, and yes, that's sad, but at the same time, I think Romero wants to make films. Unfortunately, at this point, these are the only films that he's going to even be allowed to make. And, the budgets on Diary and Survival were pretty low even then. So, I mean, I would love for Romero to do another film and just come out and just blow us all away. Can he? Is he, up to it? I don't know. He's 72 years old. He is a legend. He is a master of horror. He has shown a lot of talent, outside of the horror genre and within the horror genre, doing different kinds of horror movies and thrillers and films like that. And I think if you look at the films that he's only directed 18 projects, including some TV work and the TV documentary of the O.J. Simpson thing. But I mean, of those 18 films, you've got 3 bona fide classics. 3 bona fide classics. He redefined a genre. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 films in there that are just right there, up there. I think Creepshow, to me, is right up there with a classic too. Maybe not on the same level as his Dead films. And The Dark Half, which I think is just an excellent film in and of itself. Martin and the Crazies, really good stuff there. So yeah, I mean, his resume, his oeuvre really speaks for itself, I think. And yeah, I just kind of wanted to go off on a George Romero kind of rant today, and since it's his birthday, and yeah, I really don't think we can say enough about what he's done for the genre. Yeah, I'm just going to kind of leave it at that. So anyway, until next time, you guys take it easy, and happy birthday, George. Peace.